Pop in, say hi. If you've never come into one of my lives before, I am Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And here on Sunday nights, we keep it light. We try to keep it light. But whatever the conversation is what the conversation is. If you want to come in, hang out, say hi to the crew, that would be absolutely amazing. I have the most amazing crew ever on Sunday. And I'm not even exaggerating on that. I have no idea how I don't know how I was graced, right? I think it's a miracle that it is in the ingredients that we put into our life. And I didn't even pick the ingredients, they picked me. And in picking me, right, they won my heart. And we have been together ever since. And I'm saying ever since because I've been here on YouTube now for almost 12 years, you guys. It's going to be my 12th year anniversary this New Year's Eve. We're going to have to do something special. I don't know if we did anything special on my 10th year anniversary. I was in the mix of it, right? And when I'm in the mix of it, sometimes I'm so singularly focused. And then in coming into my lives, this is my relaxation. This is my letting go, right? And yet I'm still here, right? It's still something where we can all shine on each other. Hello. Hello, Owen. Yeah, 12 years it's going to be this New Year's Eve. Incredible, right? Incredible. And the way that I have been moving as many times as why I've been pivoting in my content, it's really a miracle that I made it to this point. And right, in just not giving up, just being determined in what we want for our lives. And sometimes it's not what we want, right? It's just what makes us feel like home, makes us feel like we matter, and it works, right? And when it works, why fix it? I have included other things, right? I have brought other things, but this Chatters Live show, it's actually Chatters Live will be a 12-year or a 10-year anniversary for this show. Um, I didn't go live for the first 2 years of creating on YouTube. I was urban exploring. I had the most amazing vehicle that I could get out on the road. And, I live in a province that is well, it is a struggle. I didn't want to say that word struggle, but it took actually blood and sweat, literally, in the creation of this province. And in that process, right, the settlers came in. Some of them succeeded, some of them didn't, some of them more than succeeded and were able to leave their homesteads behind and build anew, right? And that's what I did. I explored old homesteads going back hundreds of years, and it was so fun. I can't even describe the feeling of being out in an old homestead, out in the fields, in a house that is falling apart. Lots of these houses didn't have floors, didn't have roofs. And it was an experience even back then that I knew not too many people got to have. Hello, Andrew. Oh, Yeah, they were lots of fun. And they are lots of fun. I'm not out there specifically now looking for the old abandoned homes. When I come across them, I most definitely, right? And some of them I revisit. One of those urban explorers that I would like to revisit. I don't know, Owen or Andrew, if you remember the old train station. It was one of my favorites. It was one of my favorites, the old train station. And every year that I went to visit that station, and I did it every year, the closer it got to being on the ground. It got so dangerous at one point. The first time I explored it, I was able to get upstairs and actually see the hotel rooms, like the old train stations here in Manitoba. They're almost set up like hotels. Of course, the family, the train station master, they they live in the train station, and actually that train station actually had maybe 100 feet uh, to the south of it, had a house that they lived in the house, but they did have the train station set up in a manner that it could be used as the train station or train master's home. And I think at one point it may have, but they did expand and build their own house. And then they turned the train station into a rest area. The living room got turned into a waiting room, and they had a small waiting room at the entrance, and there was a window where you would buy your tickets, and then you go around the corner and there was an office, and then you go down the hallway and you came to the storage shed, so when the trains stopped at the station to drop the settlers off, right? And these settlers would have to like travel. They get dropped off. They'd probably stay in the hotel in one of the rooms upstairs for a night. They would load up all their belongings onto a horse cart or oxen at that time, and off they would go. And sometimes they would have to travel for days to get where they needed to be, not even knowing or not even seeing the property that they were allotted by the government, right? Lots of people here, this was a dream coming to Canada. It was a dream. And like I said, some of those pioneers, some of those settlers made it work for them and were able to build a new home probably on the opposite side of the property, build a brand new home, maybe gave the old home to a child when they got married or something. But after 100 years of repairing it and stuff, that it would eventually fall apart and became an abandoned home. Sometimes these settlers didn't succeed, right? Sometimes they didn't succeed. Sometimes they ended up moving to the city. Maybe some of them went back to the old country, whatever that country was, because we are an amalgamation here in Canada. We have every single nationality going on in this country. It's something I think that we're pretty proud of, that we were able to, not 100%, but I think we were pretty much able to kind of sway away from racism. And it was because of those extremes in our weather. Like, we depended on each other for survival. Now look how I'm talking, like we depended on each other from survival. I am not originally from Manitoba. My family moved out here when I was 18 years old, and I asked if I could come along for that adventure. I'm not quite sure for the reasons as to why we came to Manitoba. When my dad made decision, he just picked up the whole family, and we were usually gone within a week or two. We moved pretty fast. In fact, I think I went to 11 different elementary schools growing up. It was pretty hard. It was pretty hard going to those different schools and finding ways to settle in and make friends. But I made it. I made it through school. And in those difficulties, they offered up lessons. And that was a lesson I just learned this week. It's something I think I always knew, but lots of times we spend our lives avoiding the problems, avoiding the catastrophes, don't we? We don't like it when life falls through, when those hiccups and those wrenches are thrown into our life. So we avoid them. And I came across, oh, I can't remember for the life of me. It was a thought leader out there this week, and he actually said that those difficulties, those catastrophes in our life, they're not meant to mess with our life. They're meant to teach us. And it just went off like a light bulb in my head. Because if I had recognized, if I had realized that as a child, I could have saved myself so much frustration, so much worry and fear, and it might have settled my hypervigilance down a little bit because I wouldn't have worried so much about what I was being hit with, as whether it was physically or with the voice, right? The sticks and stones may break your bones, right? But words will never hurt me. I didn't believe that for a minute because I was hurt so badly by the words. Being a little fat kid, it was hard, especially in the 60s and 70s. It wasn't the norm like it is now, right? Maybe one out of 20 or 30 kids would have been heavy set, uh, but it was the norm these days, right? It's the norm to be heavy set, and it's something that that well, I don't think the kids struggle with being heavy set now like they did in the 60s and 70s, because if you're on social media in any way, they made the big girls very sexy, right? Those big bums, like they go in for plastic surgery to make their bums the size of a football field. I'm exaggerating in that, but that wasn't the norm when I was growing up. It was an excuse to pick on somebody because they were different, right? And because of my insecurities being so recognizable back then, right? I think now it's a little bit of a different story, but growing up, I was very self-conscious. I was very worried about what other people thought. And I was that person that was avoiding the dodgeball, right? I was avoiding being smacked upside the head. I was avoiding being called terrible names. And it messed with me. It really did, because it made me into an avoidant, right? It made me somebody who didn't want to be around other people because I knew how mean people could be, right? But if I had that lesson that I got, it was only a couple of days ago. I wish I could remember who it was that had said it, but I might have even written it. I did write it down here, right? That these are not attacks, they are information, right? Right? As soon as that happened, I went, oh my goodness, it's so true. I didn't look at it that way because it was so painful. It was so scary. It was so frustrating. And it put me in a place where I truly didn't want to be. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to have lots of friends and stuff when I was a kid, right? It wasn't the case, but I think in the end that served me, right? Because I was doing that. I was using it as information, not realizing, right? All these attacks coming at me were meant to give me those kind of lessons, right? And it was truly meant to give me those lessons, but I didn't look at it that way, right? It's like when my parents put me on diets when I was a kid, right? And they did that because they feared that because obesity ran so high in my family, on my father's side and on my mother's side, they were worried. I wasn't even a fat kid. I look at some of those pictures, I was just a normal sized kid, but I was treated like I was fat, that I was obese. But you know what? It made me self-conscious in a way that I just kind of stuck with myself, and I made myself my own best friend. I made my sisters my best friends. And I think in that seclusion, right? That isolation that I had chosen to put myself in to avoid that pain, to be void being called names, to be avoiding getting smacked upside the head, that it served me very, very well because it put me in my head. And that's the truth. And right, better late than never. I got this message when I was 64 years old. Like I said, a few days ago, right? A few days ago. And it was something that I was doing anyway. But right, it makes sense now when I look back on my joy and my love for wandering around in old farm fields and exploring abandoned buildings, because I was entertaining myself. I was doing things to calm my system down, even as a young adult, right? I had become so wiry, so hyper vigilant, so focused on what was going wrong or what could go wrong. I just wanted to be by myself, right? Became a little bit of an introvert. It was only out of the necessity to put a roof over my head that I learned to be social, that I learned that, I could come out of my shell. You guys have heard me say it before. I am an extroverted introvert. I like my time alone to regroup, right? To re energize, to calm my system down. But then I'm right back out there again. This week, you guys, I was out for long walks every single day. I almost had my first Charlie horse um, this week, because I didn't take in enough water. I was taking these long walks. I was really enjoying them, but I wasn't taking in the fluids. I am making up for it tonight. Holy moly. I think I need to. I put cream in my coffee today. I thought as a special treat. I usually use coffee whitener in my coffee, only because the lactose is doesn't make my gut feel very good, especially now that I'm getting older. So I've been doing the coffee mate, but I do like the cream. So let me have a sip of my coffee. Very, very nice. And I got some juice here. The container said orange juice, but look at the color of it, you guys. Like it's almost clear. This came out of a container and I sipped it. And it says pure fruit juice, but to me it tastes like Tang. So I don't know. It says it's fruit juice. Maybe it's a diet fruit juice that I bought or something, but I don't know. It's not your regular orange juice, but I'm taking in my fluids and I haven't had an issue. And I didn't get the Charlie horse. I was just on the verge of having a Charlie horse, but I knew right away because I haven't had one since I quit my job, right? I haven't had one since I quit my job because I gave everything in that job. I was going 100 miles an hour and I loved it. I loved it. But I didn't recognize that in order to go that fast that I should be consistently taking fluids in. Like I said, I'm from Vancouver. We have beautiful soft water in Vancouver and it's no flavor in it at all. And it's funny that I say that because I was actually a fluoride baby when I was a little kid. My parents put us the whole family on a trial because they were testing to see how much fluoride to put into the water reserve for drinking. And so all of us kids got free dental until we were 18 years old. We got free dental. Um, and we went into this trial, but it was like eye drops. They put it on our toothbrush, in our orange juice, in our cereal. My mother probably cooked with it. We gargled it. It was a lot of fluoride for us kids. And we all had problems with our teeth. All of us. It turned out that too much fluoride because they were trying to find the proper level of fluoride to put into the water reserves, right? That we got a little bit too much fluoride, and too much fluoride will make your teeth rot from the inside out. And all of us kids had to spend lots of money on our teeth. Very grateful now that I live in a province, Manitoba here. We do get free dental. We don't have to pay for our dental unless you're high income, then you're going to pay a partial amount of your dental. But here in Manitoba, we have really great medical, really they take really good care of us here in Manitoba. I would have to say the country takes very good care of us. And we can all grumble and complain because some aspect, right? Even for myself, I wish there was mindset in the school systems, right? If I had my say, it would be so in the school systems, especially when there's so many different cultures, so many political ideas, and so many familial, right? Like family traditions that go on in the school, and we have to all intermix and we have to find ways to respect each other's beliefs and stuff. And it's really sad because when I was a kid, I don't know in the States if they did this, but here in Canada, when you came into school in your class, before you even started class, you'd stand up and do the Lord's Prayer. It didn't matter if you were Buddhist, and we had a lot of Chinese, and I know for sure that there was not a lot of Christians in the Chinese population. I would have to say I would have no friends at all during grade school if it wasn't for my Chinese friends, right? But so many different religions and religious ideas and denominations going on, and everybody, it didn't matter if you were Jehovah Witness or if you were a Christian or you were Buddhist or Hare Krishna. It didn't matter. You had to stand up and do the Lord's Prayer. Now they've taken that out of the school system. I think that's a good idea, right? It's sad for the Christians. So, again, the Christians could have a problem with that and go against the government in that. But mindset is in that way that we have respect and kindness for each other. And I think that would have helped me out so much as a child, even though, I would know that people didn't mean it, right? They wouldn't call me a name, that they would still give me those side eyes and those, right? Those looks. They wouldn't punch me upside the head, but, they would probably giggle with their friends and stuff. And I would still know it was there, but it wouldn't have been so brutal on me, right? think that we were meant to wake up to our traumas. We weren't meant to wake up and delve into addictions to calm our systems down. I had donuts today, you guys. Fessing up to the donuts, but they were so good. It was a special treat. And you know what? I haven't been paying attention to my weight as of lately because I've been feeling good about it. And it's in that acceptance of the person that I am. And I think in the past 6 months, I have lost over 20 pounds for sure, and not even paying attention to my weight. And I'm not saying I'm going crazy on the food, but every once in a while, right, I do give myself those treats. And I sure enjoyed my treat today on my walk. Yes, I went for a walk today. Today I was going to stay home and just clean the house and do projects and take in lessons and get on top of things. But it was so nice. It got plus after it was in the plus temperatures today. Snow is going crazy, melting. The sidewalk is almost clear. There's still snow out there, but it was nice weather for a walk. And I wanted to get my bike tires pumped up. So I thought, oh, I'll go for a walk. I'll stop and get a cup of coffee, and then I'll take the bike and I'll fill up the tires. And right, because I had to walk the bike because the front tire was flat. So I had to walk the bike to the gas station to do that anyway. So I thought it was a nice excuse to get out and get some fresh air. It was so beautiful. Tammy in here? I'll come in and take a look at the comments in a minute, but I wanted to know about that storm. Did it hit you this week, Tammy? Because when I was looking at the weather, they were said that Michigan was going to get hit a little bit with the, and actually maybe Andrew too, that if you guys did get a little bit of crazy weather this week. But yeah, it was so beautiful today. So I decided to walk the bike. And when I went for that walk, I noticed that my tire was rubbing underneath the mud guards, like the fenders that cover the tires. And I tried to see where it was rubbing. I couldn't see where it was. So I'm not sure if it needs WD-40. I'm going to assume that it does. So tomorrow I'll probably buy myself a tin of WD-40 and oil up my bike really good. But I'm going to flip it over tomorrow, and I'm going to spin the tires and see where I can see where it is rubbing, and pull the fender a little bit so the tires don't rub. And it was good that I did that because, like I said, at the end of the week, we've got a few days of cold weather here, but then we're not going to hit the minuses during the course of the day. I don't think anymore until next winter. I think that I'm crossing. I'm not one of those person cross my fingers, throw the salt over. I'm not one of those people, but knock on knock on wood. Right? Lots of people are superstitious that way. So no disrespect for myself. I just laugh because I do have my own ideas that I'm sure lots of people would giggle. Well, right? Tammy and Eugene, they show up in my live shows on the Monday to Friday where I go deep. So they kind of got an idea, kind of a gist of my ideas. And they're very respectful, right? I'm grateful that they love Cindy, but I don't expect them to agree with everything that I say. That I'm grateful that I have people who hang out with me on my live shows, and they have their own minds, and they have their own ideas and their own perspectives and their own lives, right? And that's what each one of us should be able to have, right? That strange Cindy who just loves to hang out in farm fields. I'm surprised I never fell into a well, you guys. Towards the end, right after I was making all my walking sticks and everything, I always made sure when I was in the farm fields, because you never knew where the well was, because the well was always set away from the house, right? Because they didn't want the outhouses to leak in. It was more important to have the outhouse close to the house, right? 4 o'clock in the morning, if you needed to do your business, you didn't need to walk out to the field. So they would keep the wells a little bit further away from the house because that was your drinking water, that was your washing water, that was your laundry water, right? But I'm very surprised because when people left their farmsteads, they covered the wells up, right? But you know what they covered them up with? Logs, wood, right? Tree sticks and just tree trunks, side branches, and they would melt. It would take probably 10 years, not melt. They would deteriorate, right? And after a while, there wouldn't be anything covering those wells. And I very easily could have. I happened onto some crazy wells when I was out in the farm fields too. And I'm just like, whoa, good thing I saw that one, right? But I was always looking at the ground because of ticks, right? And it's funny because I follow some people. I don't know if you guys watch Not Thursday. There, he's a metal detectorist, but he has another show, Stealth Diggers, that he goes off and with his friends, and they find old homesteads and they metal detect homesteads. But on this show, Not Thursday, it's his job to go out exploring to see if he can find a homestead. He does a little bit of metal detecting himself, but I just love Not Thursday because he's just out there in the woods by himself exploring. Well, right now it's hunting season, right? It's cold. I think he's in Carolina, North Carolina. He's somewhere's cold, right? He's somewhere's cold where the very first pioneers to North America landed, right? The very first ones, the ones in the 1600s. And he finds those coins all the time, all the British coins, all the French coins. He finds Spanish reals all the time. Well, maybe not all the time, right? But he finds them often. And these are the very first settlers. And it's really neat when he does the homesteads and you notice when they ate dinner, they didn't have forks like we did with all those prongs on the forks. Their forks only had two prongs on them, right? And not only that, their spoons were made of lead and pewter, right? Can you imagine eating your dinner from the time you're a baby until you're an adult using a lead spoon? Can you imagine the health issues those kids would have had? Okay, let's come into the comments and see what everybody's. Oh, you guys making me go all the way back here. Okay, most of it is just. Oh, thank you, Andrew. Is this the first time you guys are seeing my glasses? I because I got them last Monday, and you guys don't come in to my live shows during the week. So yes, you guys can see my eyes again, and yes, my eyes are blue. And you would never have known that with the fly eyes that I had, right? The Morse code with the right. What else did I call them? Fly eyes, Morse code, laser eyes. I called them laser eyes, right? Right. Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Oh, you notice I didn't even have to mention that. I just automatically assumed because I've been wearing them all week. I just assumed. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so I got my new glasses. Super happy. They took good care of me, Pearl Vision, and yeah, I gave them a really nice review. And actually, corporate Pearl Vision contacted me and let me know how much they appreciated the kind comments that I left for them. And I took a couple of pictures too, because their shop is in a mall, right? So if people are actually looking for something in the neighborhood, right, if they go into the mall there, they'll take very good care of you. So yeah, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. Okay. And hello, Tammy. Oh, yes, I remember that. Oh, you remember the train station. Yeah, it was lots of fun and kind of really neat. All those little one room homes that were built, right? Like I guess they were the train station workers, the guys who worked the railroad, and this was like a little shanty town that they had built, and it was just little houses, and they were beautiful little houses. They had wainscoting, beautiful little windows, little some of them had little porches. Lots of them had already caved in and were already rotting on the ground, but it was kind of neat, because when they're away from their family, they felt like they had their own little homes, right? That they had built themselves. I don't know if they were trying to outdo each other or not, but some of them were log homes and some of them had beautiful siding on them. And yeah, they were really, really nice. Okay, coming down. Andrew says, I do remember the train station, Cindy. I recall the unused railroad line. Yeah, they tore it out, right? Like you could still see the trail through the woods, but yeah, I don't know what they did with all those metal rails. Maybe during the Second World War, when metal was really in need for making, I don't know, guns or bullets or something. I don't know, but yeah, metal. I know in the States they collected metal for the cause, right? Um, Right, yes, Andrew. Yeah, all those little houses, they were so beautiful, right? Each one of those workers all competing with each other to make a little home for themselves. When I say a little home, right? These homes were about the size of a bedroom, like one bedroom, and they would have like an area for a kitchen and a living room area. And the bedroom area was about as wide as a hallway, right? And it was the living area or the sleeping area. But I guess when they lived in these homes by themselves, when they were right, they were off the farm. That they were just little perfect. They looked like little children's what do you call that? Toy houses, right? What do you call that? When playhouses, like the ones your dad would make you in the backyard. My dad was creative. I don't think my dad ever made us a playhouse, but he used to make us igloos all the time. I remember my dad making igloos for us and like functional igloos too, where you could actually have a fire in the center and it would go out the smoked stack up at the top. Yeah, we lived across the school, and during lunch hour, every kid at the school would be playing in our front yard because my dad just made the most coolest igloos. But it didn't always snow in Vancouver. Like I said, it was we were lucky if we had snow on the ground for an hour on Christmas Day, right? For the most part, it was frost and rain. And not to say it wasn't cold. People say, oh, it's so cold here in Manitoba. It's just awful. I wish I lived in Vancouver. I said, oh my goodness, I wouldn't, I wouldn't trade Manitoba for Vancouver in the winter, where it rains and that wetness goes right through you, right to the bone, right? When I said I wasn't too sure why my family decided to come to Manitoba. It was a really quick decision that my dad had made. But I was under the impression it was because my mother's doctors told her to come to Manitoba because the winters were dry here and it was good for her arthritis. She had 12 different kinds of arthritis. She struggled during her life. Oh my goodness, that arthritis sure did a job on her. I remember by the time she was 40 years old, her hands were like fists. right? I'll use it with this one. And this is how she held her cup of coffee. She couldn't even open up her fingers. Towards the end of her life, she went on a trial. She was the queen of trials. She just, whatever there was that she could try, she would try when it comes to medication and drugs and stuff. I'm not that person. I don't want to be made a guinea pig that way. I love experimenting, right? I love trying new things out, but they have to be good for me. They have to be proven already. But towards the end of her life, I think it was the last couple of years of her life, they had her on a trial. And I remember going to visit her one time. She goes, Cindy, look at my hands. And she was actually able to do this, not fully open up her hands, but when they were like fists for like 30 years already for her to be able to do this. So I don't know whether or not that trial was a success because my mother passed away while she was still on the trial. And so I guess that maybe the doctors or the people who were putting on the trial might have considered it a failure and something that they couldn't use as part of the evidence because she had passed away, and also because it could be attributed to the trial drug that he they gave her to open up her hands, right? So yeah, that was interesting, right? That was an interesting experience for her for sure, but for me to see that she was actually able to open up her fingers for like the first time in 30 years, I was pretty impressed by that. But I'm not that person. If they said, "Oh, Cindy, you want to go on a trial drug?" and like that, oh, that drug that people are taking for losing weight. I can't remember what it's called, right? And it's meant for you to lose weight, and you take it, and all these movie stars and singers, they're taking it and they're just turning into like literal skeletons. Like they just look so ill, to tell you the truth, right? And yeah, I wouldn't do that, but I did have a stomach stapling operation when I was excuse me, when I was 20, 27 or 28 years old. I had the stomach stapling only because I trusted my family doctor, right? I really trusted, like my faith, he had proved himself over and over and over again. And you have to have that evidence in your life, because how do you recognize who your oh, what's the word I was looking for? The people who take care of you, right? The people that you can trust out there. And when you find them, and it's not to say that they don't make mistakes or have bad judgments, but that operation had been around for a very long time. I remember hearing a little bit, but because I didn't consider it an option for me because it was something the rich people did. I didn't understand that possibly the government would pay for it for me if I wanted, which they did. And that was a very expensive operation that I had. I think at that time it was like a $200,000 operation that Manitoba did for me. I was the very last patient in at least this province that did that operation. After me, they cut it out for a few years, and then after a few years, and the reason being is because people weren't getting enough nutrition, they weren't staying on top of their vitamins. And for myself, that's something, right, when he said you're going to have to take vitamins for the rest of your life, I took my vitamins for the rest of my life. I took my vitamins. I take my vitamins right to this very day. I attribute my good health to my vitamins. But that's not to say that the vitamins are absolutely perfect for me, because those coatings on the vitamins, and especially in the old days, like when I say the old days, right? 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? It's only been recently that we've been able to take our vitamins and our nutrients through gel form, like the little jelly candies, right? And I've been really enjoying them, and actually encourages me because, somebody who doesn't eat candy, I look at that as a little bit of a treat when I get that. Oh, I need some sugar. I wish I had some candy. And oh, time to take your vitamins, Cindy. And then I'll take my vitamin, right? Mm. It tastes good, but that is not juice, you guys. Look at it. It looks like Tang even, right? But it says real fruit juice, right? So I don't know. Maybe it's mixed with some pear juice or some apple juice or something, but yeah, that's not orange juice for sure. Like I said, it tastes like Tang. Okay, let me come into these comments. But thank you, Andrew, for noticing my glasses. Yeah, I haven't done a dark frame before. There are pinks in my frame, but you really don't notice it because there's so much dark color, like it's a dark burgundy all the way around. And also, he talked me into a bigger frame because it makes it so that I have better vision, that I can see like here rather than just what's covering my eyes. I've got lots of space that I can see everything from around here. Okay. Yeah, the train station. I love that one. Um no, actually those railway workers had their little shanty town right across the road from the train station, because I remember we explored the train station and then we crossed the road and we explored, and it was wintertime too. And it was dangerous because some of those buildings had caved in, but they had a lot of stuff in it. I know there must have been a scrapper. I know there was one of the houses was full of old radios and stuff. So somebody liked to tinker with radios and stereos and speakers and stuff. But they were very dangerous. I know there was a couple of barns that were full of like tractors and saws and all kinds of dangerous stuff, right? I never ever got hurt. I think the worst that happened to me is I fell through a floor a couple of times, right? Which wasn't scary because I was on the main floor and I think there wasn't much of a foundation on the house to start with. Um, and I remember falling on a rotting raccoon one time. But then again, there were the wells. So the wells, falling into a well, that would have been just disastrous for me because I was out there by myself very rarely. Sometimes when I'd stop in front of the abandons, right, I had to wait for somebody to come by so I could just say, "Hey, is it okay for me to explore this?" Right, to get a little bit of a permission. I was very self conscious about exploring these places without permission. And I did, but I felt really, really bad about doing it. And I would only do it if they truly were abandoned. If it was in somebody's farm field where they were actually growing wheat or right different crops and stuff, I would not have. If seen another house or something, I would have knocked on their door. But when they were truly, truly abandoned, I didn't wait around to see if somebody would drive by to ask permission. I would just go ahead and and explore them. But lots of fun. Actually, Tammy and me were talking the other night. She had gone into that. I don't remember if you guys saw the scrapper house. They were all kind of scrappers in those old homesteads. That's usually why they weren't cleaned up and stuff or lived in longer. But there were piles and piles of metal, and there were lots and lots of cars. Like everywhere she looked, you go into the forest, there was a a car with a rotting tarp on it, right? Big old cars too. It was so much fun. I really remember that house. And I remember I couldn't really get into the house because the floor had already caved in. So it was kind of dangerous. And actually, the roof was ready to topple in. Most of those houses were ready to topple in. I'm surprised. I never got hurt. I don't ever remember. The worst thing that ever happened to me is I had to pick some ticks off of me. That was that was the worst thing that ever happened to me when I go off exploring these things. For the most part, I thrived. Oh, just the drive out in the countryside, the the rush of looking for a homestead, and then the rush of finding a homestead or a church or a one-room schoolhouse. It was so exciting. I even found ghost towns too. The ghost towns explores were lots of fun. I really loved the ghost towns when I happened onto them, but there weren't many of them. I know there are a lot of them. Uh, and they're good if I wanted to go metal detecting. Because what happened is they would have when they got their land, they would kind of decide where the town would be because they wanted the railroad to pass through their town. So when they can get this, supplies and people would be able to come and have access for traveling and stuff. But lots of these railroad companies, they were wheeling and dealing with the towns or with the wealthier homesteaders and stuff. And so they would get swayed into putting the train tracks somewhere else. And they would pick up the whole town and move the whole town, where there would be a point where there wasn't even any churches, maybe a graveyard left. Like they would move absolutely everything. And I actually made a map and I did quite a bit of research on some of those towns because I thought they would be perfect for metal detecting. Up until I think a year ago, I had two metal detectors, but I was so involved in the digging for crystals and the camping and the urban exploring. And then I actually picked up the hobby of bottle digging and magnet fishing too, right? Oh, and the bushcraft. I was all, anything to be outdoors. I was into it, right? I really loved it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it makes me want to get out on the road. Right? I wonder if my sister Tracy would let me borrow her car. She can't drive right now. She hasn't been able to drive for a few months. She's been going a little bit of house, what do you call that? House crazy, where she's stuck in her house, and her and my sister, they get a ride from my brother-in-law, and they go gambling at the hotel. They like the slot machine, so they go to the hotel once or twice a week and gamble, right? But that's not good for her. And she's spending all that money that she worked her entire life for. She's just spending it all, just wasting it all. And but she's doing it now because she's bored and she needs to get out of her apartment, right? But they took her driver's license away because she can't see, right? They her diabetes has caused something with her eyes. She's not going blind, but there's a lot of fluid buildup and stuff behind her eyes, and so they need to drain her eyes, and they can't do it all at once. They can only do it in little stages. Let me have a sip of my coffee. Mm. That wasn't a sip, that was a gulp. I haven't had cream in a couple of months. Oh my goodness, I am enjoying it. It's like coffee shop cream. I stopped off today when I went to fill the tires up on my bike. I got a beautiful bike. I hope I at least told you guys about my bike. I did get a bike this. Oh, I did. I remember pulling it up and showing everybody my bike. But yeah, I went and got a lock for it. I got a paddle lock, but what I got was a cable with loop cables, metal loop cables, like half-inch thick, and they got a rubber coating over them so it won't destroy the finish on my bike. But the cable is 14 feet long, because it doesn't matter what kind of lock you get for your bike. These people out here that are selling bikes for $25, if I had waited for another week or two, right? They'd be out there stealing bikes. And I'm not promoting people who are stealing bikes by getting myself a cheap $25 bike, right? So that when I said that, I thought, well, my bike is probably stolen because I bought it at a pawn shop, right? So I'm going to assume that it was stolen. But then maybe it wasn't, right? But if somebody was selling me a bike for $25, I would know that it was stolen, and I don't want to be promoting that. So I'm glad that I at the very least went to the pawn shop and got myself a bike. But they'll cut through any kind of lock, and it's fast and quick too. So I got myself a 14-foot cable. And today was the first time when I went into McDonald's, right, to get a cup of coffee. I put it into the bike rack, and then I looped the 14-foot cord through every bar and everything, and then I locked it to the bar of the bike stand. And I thought, Cindy, that was actually pretty ingenious that you did it, because if they wanted the bike, they're going to get it, right? But at the very least now, it'd be a little bit of a pain in the butt, right? For them to spend 5 minutes getting that cable all untangled, because I had looped around every single bar, every tire, everything, right? It looked like I was stringing my bike up with Christmas lights. That's how much cable I had going on. And I thought, oh, Cindy, you're such a genius. That was just like the perfect idea. Because when I go into the store for a cup of coffee, I'm only going in for 5 minutes, right? So if somebody's watching me lock up my bike and then gets to my bike and cuts that lock, cuts that cable, it's going to take them 5 minutes just to get the cable untangled from the bike, because they wouldn't be able to get the bike to go anywheres, because it was just like a cobweb. That's how I did it. So I was awfully proud of myself. Yeah, so it's a great idea, you guys. If you are looking for a bike lock, try the cables. And it was hard because I went to the bike accessories and everything to find a cable for my bike, and all I could find was the cable with the combination lock on it, right? And I didn't want that one, right? I didn't want the combination lock. Oh, and it was only a short cable. It was only like 3 foot long cable. And so I thought, well, maybe it's sitting up in another aisle up in the hardware, right? They have a cable for me, because I did see it, because I went into Canadian Hardware, which is like a hardware store, or Canadian Tire, which is a hardware store. They have a little bit of everything except food, right? And and they said they had one on sale, right? So I didn't see it in the bike section. I said, well, it's too early now for people to be looking for bike locks and stuff. And then they had a case with all kinds of bike locks and the expensive things that they lock up. It wasn't in there either. And so I took a walk up to the door locks, surprise in place, and there it was. And then I grabbed it. I went, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I want. And then I walked to the other end of the store. And I guess between that aisle and walking to the other end of the store, I had taken the tag had fallen off. I guess it fell on the floor or something. And so I put it on the counter, and she goes, oh my goodness, it doesn't have a price on it. And I went, oh, do you want me to go back and get another one? It's on the other side of the store, though. I'll be a couple of minutes. She goes, no, I'll get the price for it. She went to the phone to phone somebody to get the price for her. And then I says, well, I looked in the flyer. This is what it was called, and this is the price that it said that it was on sale. Plus, there was a tag underneath it that had the sale price, and I told her the price. And then she found it on her computer. She goes, "Oh, you're right. Here it is, right here." And I went, "Oh, okay." She goes, "Oh, you saved me. You saved me a little bit of a trip up there because that Canadian Tire, you guys. I don't know. It's like Walmart. It's probably about the same size as Walmart, and they sell everything except food and I guess furniture. They don't sell furniture unless it's like patio furniture or outdoor furniture, camping furniture. They don't, right? Household furniture, they don't do. But, right, if your car breaks down, you can buy tires and fuses and all kinds of do your own brakes. You can buy brakes. You just go in and give them the stock number, the date of your car, and you can just fix the car yourself. And then, you got hardware supplies, camping supplies, your bike supplies, the gardening section. And then they have a household section too, where you can buy like coffee pots and stuff like that, right? Coffee machines and pots and pans and stuff. So, yeah, it's a great store, Canadian Tire. I'm assuming that in the States they don't have that. But I'm sure you have something in the States that's almost the same as what we call Canadian Tire because it's a store that I think that, right, if they don't have it, they should have it because it comes in handy dandy. When people go to the malls, they always take a stop at the Canadian Tire, right? Because they do have like the cat supplies and cat food and cat litter and stuff, but people food, they don't have people food unless you need some bubble gum or something as those little plus cells that they get you at when you go through the checkout sign, you're waiting your turn. You go, "Oh, I'll grab that chocolate bar. Oh, grab that gum." Right? Yeah. Um, Tammy says, "I love train stations and trains. My brother does too. We visit train depots around our state. Some are museums and some have closed down." And I remember you saying, Tammy, also that our CN rail line ran through your state also, and they removed the tracks and stuff. I know here in Manitoba, we have Oh no, we have North Dakota is is the state that's underneath Manitoba, but our rail line goes into North Dakota, and I follow a couple explorers there, and I remember them saying that those rail stations are still there, that they use them for something. I can't remember. Oh, maybe that was you who said something. Somebody told me something. They make them part of the walking trails now. They're walking trails, the old train tracks. And I thought, oh, what a great idea, right? Because it would make it easy to do too, because all you have to do is throw gravel in between the rails and then you can have a nice walking trail, right? A nice walking trail. So yeah, everybody utilizes the train tracks differently, right? Yeah. But it is fun finding the old train stations. There's actually a train station up further north, probably a couple of hours away at the very least. And the gentleman has the oh no, that was a schoolhouse. Yeah, and he turned it into a museum, and people drop off old things that are historical here in Manitoba, and they drop it off for them. I have a couple of neat things here. Let me grab something that's really neat that you guys might find is interesting. If I can reach it without taking out my light fixture here. Uh, oh, I don't. Oh, what did I do with it? I guess I put it away because I was going to donate it to the Manitoba Museum. It was actually an attendance it was an attendance file like from 1910 or something like that, really, really early. And it had all the kids' names on it and all the times that they made it to class, their attendance record, had their grades. The teacher made little notes on each of the students and stuff. And then you could see all the same names, right? The same last names of all the students because all the kids were in the same class, right? They were all in the same class, but also it was neat because you would see long runs of no attendance where they didn't show up for class. And you knew it was because they were working in the fields or it was like 40 below zero. Remember what I said? We live in very extreme weather here, right? Very hot summers and very, very cold winters. And we depend on each other to survive. So these these kids would not be able to walk to school when it was 40 below zero, right? They wouldn't be dressed properly in those days, right? And yeah, they would have to stay home until the snow cleared up. They didn't have snow plows in those days. I have no idea how they would have cleared the roads. That is actually an interesting question. But I'm just going to write here. I love to write little notes of things that I find interesting. So I remember to kind of do a little bit of research because I find it interesting and make you wonder how because they had roads in the 1910s. They might not have had cars, but they would have had horse and buggies and sleighs and stuff. And I don't know, maybe they just compounded the snow, with the sleighs and stuff, the horses and stuff. That still would have been hard. So I'm going to find that interesting how they cleared snow in the old days. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. And I came across it. I don't know. Oh, it came in through my store where I worked, in the little thrift store that I worked, and I grabbed it because I wanted to donate it because they do historical auction every year where you can purchase things by bidding on them, and they're historical items. But I think this item, this attendance file that I had, because the school did not last very long. It only lasted less than 10 years, and then the school was defunct. In fact, the whole town is gone now. All that there is they call them cairns, and they're concrete kind of pyramid things that they put alongside the road. So when you're out on the back roads and stuff, it'll have a little commemorative concrete pyramid thing, and it'll have a plaque on it saying, this is where this town of Stanford was. I'm not sure if that was the name. It started with an S. I can't remember what the name of the town was, but I thought, oh, well, another place that I could go metal detecting, right? And I bet you schoolyards were lots of fun, really fun to metal detect. Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's come down in the comments because you guys are like been yapping. I'm not even halfway down the comments here. So let's see where we're at. Tammy, I'm an ocean liner enthusiast. Andrew, did I send you those postcards of all those ships? I hope I did. I meant to send them to you. I have to check my desk. I can't remember. I think I did send them to you. I don't know. Let me know in the comments, Andrew, if I sent you those old postcards of all those ships. I remember you saying that you like the ocean liners and you like the cruise ships too, the old cruise ships. Yeah, I think I sent them to you. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But if I didn't, let me know in the comments and I'll dig through my drawers because I had a little pile put away for you. Every time I came across one, I would put it away for you. And I was going to mail them to you. Hope I did. Um, Lots of people like trains, right? old trains. I thought maybe I would love to take a trip. I know they do it in Europe where you can buy a pass and your pass is good for a month and you can get on a train and get off the train at all the stations. But then after a month, your train pass is defunct. They should do something like that in Canada so that you could really, right, you could travel across Canada in a month. You could travel across Canada and spend a couple of days in these cities and then just hop on another train to go to the next city, right? I would be all about that for sure, right? And I would just hit every major city. I came to Manitoba. Did I come? Oh no, I came back to Manitoba. When I came to Manitoba the first time, me and my sister took a plane here. My family took a train, and then me and my sister decided we wanted to move back to Vancouver. We moved back to Vancouver for a year. I had a really good job as a short order cook. Made lots of money. I made so much money. My checks were absolutely just huge. Like they would compete with the checks that I would make in this day and age. And that was like in the 80s, right? So we moved there, but it wasn't the same. I missed my dad, right? And I knew my dad was sick. So I wanted to make sure that I was with my dad for as long as I could. So I moved back to Winnipeg, but when I moved back to Winnipeg, I Winterpeg, I took the train to come back, and I love taking the train. The views were stunning. That's one thing I'm going to have to say, that Canada really did a good job in planning the route, in doing the rail line, because so gorgeous. Like there was no other way to promote this country than those beautiful landscapes that you get to view when you're on a train. But if they had that 30-day pass, oh my goodness, they could promote the train. I think the trains do very well, right? I think you never hear about them going under or not making money or being in trouble or anything. Um, so I'm going to assume I shouldn't, right? I'm going to just check out train station finances, and I'll check out. See, it's something, these little tidbits that I find curious, that I find interesting, just to see the financial matters, because I never hear that they're in trouble financially, that they have to, right? Not like the Greyhound bus line. I don't know if in the States you still have Greyhound, but here in Canada, the Greyhound bus line, where you used to be able to just take a bus from town to town, and I did that all the time as a kid. We did lots of traveling and stuff, and yeah, the bus line was something that we did, but they don't do that anymore, right? You can't say, "Oh, I think I'll go to Steinbach," or "I think I'll go to Brandon for the weekend." You can't do that unless you have a vehicle. You're not getting there, right? But they used to just be able to just jump on a bus and go and visit for a weekend, right? Here in Manitoba, we have a lake, Winnipeg Beach. Now, to drive there, it takes you about an hour to drive to Winnipeg Beach. But it used to be the big thing when the weekend came. They would have they had a big hotel. It burnt down, right? But they had a big hotel. They had boardwalks along the lake. And Winnipeg Lake is one of the biggest lakes in the world. And it's like an ocean when you go there. It had a beach. They brought in all the sand. They just made it like a beautiful beach. And people would just spend the whole weekend there, golfing, visiting, going to the hotel, shopping, right? Doing the boardwalk, and they would take the train. They get on a train on Friday, and those trains would run every 2 hours, right? Every 2 hours, there would be a new train and you could hop on, hop off, right? At Winnipeg Beach. And those trains, as soon as they were gone, Winnipeg Beach, it's still popular because it's only an hour drive away. It's a nice little outing and go for a picnic, go to the beach. And it is a true beach, like you're going to the ocean. Like they even have waves and stuff. Some of the best fishing in Canada is done on Winnipeg Lake. Only because now, because of the fertilizers coming out of the farm fields, right? And they go into the it drips into the lakes when it rains and stuff. It drains, all these fertilizers drain into the lakes, and the fish love it. And the fish are massive because of the fertilizers, but there's lots of chemicals in the fertilizers. And also, besides feeding the fish, the fertilizers feed the algae, which is very dangerous. It cuts off the oxygen to all the water plants and for the fish and stuff, and it kills the lake. And then, well, of course, we've got what do you call those invasive species, right? We've got mussels that aren't supposed to be here. They come up from the States when the fishermen come. They don't clean their boats before they drop their boats into our lakes. So they've transferred these invasive species of some kind of mussel. I can't remember the name of the mussels, but they're very dangerous, and they're trying to find ways to kill the mussels to get them out because they're just causing so much damage. And they had a few ways that kind of had a little bit of success, but it was very expensive, right, to do. And they always came back after a certain amount of time. So they're looking for solutions so that they can permanently get rid of these mussels, right? I don't know how we got to Winnipeg Beach. Da 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 da. Oh yeah, about the trains, right? Yeah, trains. But they did cut the trains to Winnipeg Beach, and it was for an outing. It was like going to Coney Island. That's what going to Winnipeg Beach is. It was something everybody wanted to do, and it was fairly inexpensive. You could have a great adventure, right? Take the whole family out there, and all it would cost you was $1 maybe for your train fare. Probably the kids got on for free if they were with their parents, right? And it would be an outing, right? And maybe dad would splurge on a hotel room, right? Or there would be weddings there or honeymoons, right? If people couldn't afford to go on a big trip somewheres, right? To go on a little trip to Winnipeg Beach and stay at the hotel for your honeymoon. That was quite popular too. Okay. Um Heavy set because of processed food and lack of exercise. I would be thinner if arthritis didn't keep me from walking without pain. That's true too. That's why I say I'm so grateful for my good health, right? Because I am a walker. I had this conversation with my sister last week that, like everybody in my family struggles with some kind of health issue. And I don't have these issues, right? I'm so grateful for my good health. I'm a big girl, but being a good girl, remember what I said, that what did I write here? That these wrenches and these terrible things that happened into our life were so hairy scary that we're trying to avoid them. We don't want to even think about them. But if we do immerse ourselves in the things that go wrong in our lives, that we can see that there were actually good things, that there were actually lessons in that. And one thing about being a good girl and a good girl, a big girl, right? Being a big girl, well, it kept me being a good girl, right? Right? There weren't a lot of opportunities for me to be a bad girl, even though sometimes I wanted to be a bad girl. I wasn't, right? So that was kind of a good thing, right? That was kind of a good thing. But one thing about being a big girl, I got to have dense bones, right? My bones had to adjust to become very strong in order to carry that weight around. And so I've got very dense bones, and I credit the fact that I don't have arthritis because of my dense bones, right? All the nutrients went straight to the bones. All those vitamins I took went straight to the bones. And I was actually thinking about it today, and it's something, who's to say whatever, whoever out there, bestows a gift onto you, right? What would you want, right? Would you want to be rich? Would you want to be healthy, right? Would you want to be healthy? Would you want to be beautiful or handsome? Would you want to be athletic and strong? Right? There are good things and bad things about that because you can be the most handsomest person in the world, but be very bad with your money, that you just want the nightlife and the girls, and that can lead you into bad things like drugs and alcohol, right? You could have all the money in the world, but be terrible in relationships, and then never know if your true love came into your life because they needed you to pay the bills to make their life easier, or if they truly loved you, right? Because a lot of people, they don't know the difference between love and limerence because they feel the same, because they feel like, I need you, I want you, you got to stay around me. But that's only because you're fulfilling needs, right? That you're taking care of them. They don't have to worry about the bills. You're going to let them know when they need to go to see a doctor, or if they, if something goes wrong in their life, that they have a partner that's going to solve those problems. And that can make you weak, right? Because you're just depending on somebody else. You're not depending on yourself, right? And so you got to think it's a trade off. And I think in my last life, right? And I am so grateful if I had the opportunity to make that choice again. If God says, what's your gift, Cindy? What do you want? I'm not guaranteeing anything except for the one thing that you ask for. I'm going to say my good health, right? That was the smartest thing, right, that I could have ever given myself, was my good health, especially when I recognize the illnesses and the struggles in my family's life. Like everybody, my dad had congenital heart failure. My mother had 12 different kinds of rheumatoid arthritis. I have two sisters with diabetes. I have a couple of sisters, right? I'm saying one with diabetes and arthritis, and right, and then there's me. And the thing is, when you're not feeling good, remember what we were talking about, well, Tammy knows we were talking about, when we're in that negative state, all we're allowing is more negative to come into our life. So you know what it feels like when your shoes don't fit you properly. You can't do your job because all you're thinking about is the pain in your feet, how your shoes don't fit. That's the only analogy I can give, because right, of my good health, I don't have anything else to say badly that I would be miserable in. And changing your footwear will resolve the issue of you thinking about and concentrating on your sore feet rather than the job that you need to do, or going out on an outing to Winnipeg Beach and going swimming in the ocean because you're just in pain. You can't enjoy life when you're ill, when you're in pain. And when you're ill or when you're in pain, you're only in a negative state, how can the positive, right? You could be hopeful, right? Right? Oh, I'll feel better next week, right? If I just take these vitamins, maybe I'll get better, and maybe you will. But in our need to avoid the difficulty, our need to avoid the pain, right? The heartbreak, all those things, we're not paying attention to those lessons in that and looking at the positives in those experiences like I did when I was, a heavyweight girl. Like I was obese. I had gotten up to 311 pounds at my very highest. That's big for a girl, right? And I ended up having to have an operation to lose that weight. I put myself under a lot of anxiety, like a lot of anxiety when I was a kid and a teenager, and in those years when I was interested in guys and stuff, that there was a lot of frustration, a lot of pain in that. I was in a negative state. And when you're in a negative state, all you're inviting in is more negative. So I would have to say, if I was going to choose a gift, I would have to choose my good health again. Forever and ever. That would be the only thing. If I didn't get to have money, if I didn't get to be beautiful, if I didn't get to be smart, if I didn't get to be good at sports, right, it doesn't matter. I would find some other way, like walking through farm fields, in order to make myself feel good, right? To bring that positivity into my life. And I would be able to do that because I wouldn't be concentrating on the boohoo's of my ill health, right? I can't imagine. I feel for people, right? Because I've seen it within my own family, the way my family struggles with their bad health sometimes. Okay. Oh my goodness. I'm only halfway down and my live show is coming to an end, you guys. I did get a good score this week. I got a work belt suspender set, like for like with the vest. It's all leather. It was in brand new shape. It was excellent. I got it for $20 and I listed it and it was sold within a couple of hours for $80. I could have probably asked 100 or 150. I wasn't being greedy, but I wanted to sell it fast. And I got $80 right away for it. I listed a few more things. And that's what I spent the day on today, is listing a few things. I got one more thing that I got a couple of things to list, but yeah, I'm doing things in a state where I'm enjoying my life at the same time, just so that it's just not work, 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 right? That it's just not all miserable. But I am enjoying the process. And if it's difficult, if it's frustrating, I'm going to look at the lessons in that, the good things that come out of it. It was a good lesson for me this week. Maybe something that you guys can take into your next following week when you're dealing with the difficulties in your life, that you might be able to look at the lessons in that, look at the gifts in that, or even you guys ask that question to yourself in your next life. God or whoever or whatever says, okay, you get one thing. What is that one thing that you want? Not guaranteeing anything else, but I'll make sure whatever you want the most in your next life, what do you want? And ask that question to yourself and see what you come up with. Maybe you'd be the same as me, because you know what? I couldn't imagine being able to enjoy my life without my good health, right? Right? Yeah, probably wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you guys. Okay, let's come down into the comments really fast and we're going to say our goodbyes in the meantime. Andrew says, I heard someone say just a couple of days ago that words live forever. I heard somebody say that words are spells. Isn't that interesting, Andrew? Right? They're spells. they're negatives that somebody are shooting at you like bows and arrows. I love ships too. Andrew Tammy says, I love boats too. I love different kinds. You're so interesting, Tammy. I love people that have lots of interests, right? And that's one thing about my crew here. We all are diverse in our interests. It makes us unique. I'm not really a ship person myself, but I what because I had my dad was a commercial fisherman and I had experiences on his boat and stuff that kind of made me afraid of the water and stuff. But those are our experiences, right? Cindy, you look beautiful with your new glasses and your hairstyle. Oh my, I just didn't I didn't have my ponytail scrunchie here with me, so you guys just had to live with my hair down today. But thank you. Thank you so much for saying that, Tammy. I appreciate that. Here in the state of Michigan, when I was growing up, we had a moment of silence and then we did the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, that's a good one. Allegiance to the flag. That's a good one. That was back in the 1970s and 80s until I graduated. Yeah, we don't have anything like that. We don't have a Declaration of Independence or anything like that. But you know what? That's a good one. I right? That's something everybody could do. Doesn't matter what religion or political ideas you have. You have to pledge your allegiance to your country, right? Be a good citizen, right? I wish I was a better citizen than I was growing up. I ever had the opportunity to give back in some way to this country that I live in, most definitely I will. I live in an amazing country. I recognize that. I'm grateful for that. We've had some fluctuating of temperatures here in Indiana, but maybe we'll settle into something more seasonal and consistent. Yeah, it's starting to warm up. I got a few more days of cold, you guys, and then we're going to be in the plus temperatures until next winter. Like I said, at least that's what the weatherman says, the weather channel says, right? We don't have a weatherman anymore. Well, I don't watch news. We probably do have a weatherman, but my weatherman is the weather channel. Okay, let's come way down here. Oh, Zempic, you're right. Thank you, Tammy. Yeah, that Ozempic. I couldn't go on that. There hasn't been enough testing and trials, and from what I see, people look pretty scary. I would want to be a sack of skin, right? I actually had to have quite a bit of skin cut off after I had lost all my weight. I had to have a little bit of plastic surgery because things just didn't hang properly after I lost that much weight. I use Kryptonite U-Lock. Oh, sometimes two of them. These are much harder to cut than cables. My two bikes that were stolen had cable hooks or locks on them. So far, okay. The U-Lock has a key. Yeah, if I can get some good money to invest in a real good lock, or if I come across a really good deal at my thrift shops, I'll definitely buy one. Thank you for that tip, Andrew. Oh, Eugene's here. Hello, everybody. Hello, Eugene. Canadian National is half a mile from your house. It goes by every day at various times, like a couple of times an hour. I love trains. You don't hear them like you used to, right? Yeah, I like the trains. But hi, Eugene. Okay, I like Canadian National Railroad. Oh, Debbie's here too. Hello, Debbie. Just joined, so not sure what you're talking about, but you mentioned write small notes. Me too. I love notes all over the place. Sometimes I can't remember where I put the notes. I've got notes too, and I tape them on back of pictures and stuff. And one day I'm going to pull these pictures down and I'm going to take a look at these notes. I haven't clump. I'm going to assume that they're goals and things and dreams and stuff that I want for myself. But until I accomplish a few more of them, I don't think I'll untape them. I'll leave them for a surprise when, right, those surprises come into my life, and then maybe I can say, "See, I said that I was going to do this in the year 2000, and look what I've done. I've accomplished it." uh, Canadian National Railroad runs Old Illinois Central, Gulf Mobile, Ohio. Oh, okay, interesting. Interesting. My Debbie says my dad worked over 45 years with CNR. I love CNR. And CNR is very collectible, very collectible. I used to buy that stuff like it was popcorn and it would sell like it was popcorn. Yeah, very collectible. And we got a free family pass. And oh, really? Oh, that would be so amazing. Oh, Debbie, you make me jealous. And I'm not even a jealous person, but yeah, that would have been a special treat for me. Oh my goodness, if I had family that worked for the train station and I got free, my friend Sharon gets free flights wherever she wants to go. She gets free flights because her son is an airport control person, technical person with the airports. Yeah, he had to go to schooling and everything. He worked hard. I hope he's doing good. Okay, you guys, everybody, let's say our good nights tonight. I'll be back tomorrow with what's my good cheer. If you guys want to pop in during the week, Tammy shows up, Eugene shows up, uh, um, Earl shows up, Kathy shows up, and yeah, if you guys want to pop in during the week and hang out with us, it would be absolutely amazing. If not, we will see you next Sunday. That's it for tonight. I went over a little bit today. We're just going to stop, send some good cheer off to the fire truck, let them get to their destination. They can say it was a false alarm. They can turn around and go right back to the station. And yes, it was a fire truck. Okay, you guys, have a great night. See you next week.